My name is Alto Strata. This is a pseudonym I use because I've been holding out the hope of going back to work eventually under my real name. And because of the stigma of mental illness, I haven't been using my real name. I want to share my story with you and ask for your help. My story, I've told very few people because it's something that a lot of people don't want to hear about. And that is that when you get off psychiatric drugs, if you don't do it in the right way, the psychiatric hell does not end. I've been more or less housebound for the last 4 years, so this is a real challenge to me to be able to talk to you today. The autonomic distress that I've had for the last 8 years from Paxil withdrawal has gotten into my heart, and I now have a serious heart condition. My story, I'll just put in a nutshell, and that is that in about 2001, I went on Paxil. My internist prescribed it. I think that at that time, actually, what I was suffering from was low B12. It's quite common that physical ailments are mistaken for psychiatric problems, and that people are mistreated with psychiatric drugs instead of addressing the underlying physical ailment. And if the person does not respond to the psychiatric drug, of course, it's supposed to mean that they need more psychiatric drugs. However, I was on Paxil for about 3 years, and I suffered typical side effects. I gradually became very demotivated. I, of course, had the sexual side effects. And at last I determined that I would get off of Paxil, that it wasn't doing me any good. So I went up to UCSF, which is a premier medical institution here in San Francisco, University of California, San Francisco. I thought their psychiatrists would know how to take me off of Paxil. It turned out that they knew absolutely nothing about tapering. And when I came down with severe withdrawal syndrome, they did not do the appropriate thing, which is to immediately reinstate the drug. Instead, they thought that I was having a relapse of something that has no connection with reality, because I was obviously suffering from withdrawal syndrome with the brain zaps and so forth. Now, since that time, which was 8 years ago, I've learned a great deal about withdrawal syndrome, and I'm probably one of the top 6 experts in the world on withdrawal syndrome and tapering off drugs. I have started a website called survivingantidepressants.org, which gives people specific information about how to taper off of specific drugs. In other words, if you're on Risperdal, there is a topic that explains how to titrate Risperdal. If you are on Effexor, there is a topic that describes how to titrate off Effexor. It's very important to go off these medications in a gradual fashion. How slow depends on your individual nervous system, but I cannot emphasize how important it is for you to go off in a gradual fashion so that you don't end up like me, basically. There are many, many people who come to my website who have gone off cold turkey, and they are suffering terribly, and there's nothing that can be done for them. If some time has passed and we cannot reinstate the drug, all they can do is wait until they heal. Let me tell you a little bit about withdrawal symptoms. Those brain zaps are not just some minor little problem. I had them for 6 months, which is a long time, but they are not a minor problem even if they last for 2 days. What they are is abnormal electrical activity in your brain. It's a form of epilepsy. This is not something that a normal brain should be experiencing. There are other withdrawal symptoms, such as disorientation, confusion, inability to concentrate, inability to sleep. All of this bespeaks of a very unhappy nervous system. You do not want to stress your nervous system like that. My problem, I've been suffering from autonomic problems for 8 years because of Paxil withdrawal syndrome, and I urge you not to unbalance your autonomic nervous system. It runs everything in your body. It runs your breathing, it runs your heart rate, it runs your it runs your muscle tone. And if you upset it by going off too fast, it can take a very long time to recover. The good news is that you do recover over time. The bad news is that most likely withdrawal syndrome leaves you hypersensitive to medications, including medications that you might at some time want to take, like anesthesia for major operations, and it will makes it very, very tricky for doctors to treat real medical conditions, like, for instance, heart problems. For me, there's really there's no drug therapy because I'm hypersensitive to medications, and my heart problem I'm probably going to need a surgery, which is not a happy option for me. So the favor that I want to ask you is, let me go back a little bit. All right, so I want to tell you the good news is you can get off of psychiatric drugs safely. You absolutely can. The trick is to go slowly enough so that you don't push yourself into withdrawal symptoms. That's really important, to go slowly. This excludes cold turkey as a tapering option. It is not a tapering option. Please, if you know of anyone who's thinking of going off psychiatric drugs, please ask them to taper rather than cold turkey, or they could hurt themselves and get themselves into psychiatric hell off the drugs for many years. So thank you very much for listening to me, and I'm really glad that I found a slide at the very end here, and I hope that all of you will help me out and help save people from being injured by withdrawal from psychiatric drugs. Thank you.